What do you think from all of your experience with the top 3 mistakes people make opening a restaurant?
Great question. Something's wrong with what you're buying or your pricing strategy. But at the end of the day, those are easier problems to address than my people aren't happy or my guests aren't happy. Everything is about the guest and the guest experience. And that's all I care about.
If you don't have those 2 elements, you're not gonna be successful.
That's right.
That's right. Yeah.
You may be in the wrong spot with the wrong concept.
The scariest part of owning a restaurant is a 5-year mark. That's the highest failure rate. There's all these statistics that aren't true saying that 60-90% of restaurants fail within the first year. There's absolutely no studies backing that up. In fact, studies show 27% of restaurants fail in the first year. It's not even the riskiest business to be in. Most restaurants fail in the year 5. That's the highest failure rate. And I want to show you what you can do differently to prevent that. And I was lucky enough to sit down with Andrew Zimmern. And if you don't know who he is, he was a host of the amazing Bizarre Food Show. He has award-winning shows, award-winning radio, award-winning books. He's opened numerous restaurants to mass success. And what a lot of people don't know is he's been in the industry for 50 years. He got his first job as a line cook at the age of 14. He's opened so many restaurants, not only linked in business, but he knows exactly what it takes to make them successful. People actually consult with him, paying him a lot of money to make sure that their restaurants are successful, and he's done that for a lot of people. So I sat down with him and asked him what the future of restaurants look like and what restaurant owners can do to prevent failing in that 5-year mark and even thriving past that 5-year mark, going to 10, 15, and even 20, multiple units. Let's just jump right into it.
I was about to work in my first restaurant then in the summer of '75. And so I finally got into a restaurant, but I've never forgotten how well everybody played together. There was no disagreement. There was no, it was like, the plays were called by the quarterback and everyone did what they were supposed to do all night long. The hum of the dining room was created by 2 things: the happiness of the guest and the team working together. And I don't think I've ever forgotten those 2 things. People always want to talk about, is it the right light bulb? Is the chicken too spicy? I really think people forget about, is the team working together and is the guest happy? Because if those 2 things are in place, I have noticed in reverse, it's a place that I would like to eat, and it's a place that is successful. So when I go into a restaurant that I've never been to before, as a walk-in, if I don't see happy customers, and more importantly, happy people working there, and also good smell. I look at the tables, I look at the food, I want to smell things. I don't eat there.
Yeah, and I talk about this all the time. I'm like a big proponent of what you just said, and I always I try and tell people, if you want to look at it just from a business standpoint strictly, you take care of your employees will take care of the guests will take care of the restaurant will take care of you. But you have to take care of your employees first, keep them happy.
Well, I think there is an element of just like silly blocking and tackling that's associated with things like food cost, right?
Mm-hmm.
You talk about that business of running a restaurant. There are so many things that are rote sort of exercises that have to be done. If you're doing $1 million in business a year and your rent is $20,000 a month, you may be in the wrong spot with the wrong concept, right? If you're running a hamburger hot dog place and your food cost is 40%, something's wrong with what you're buying or your pricing strategy, right? So there's blocking and tackling that can be done. But at the end of the day, I think those are easier problems to address than my people aren't happy or my guests aren't happy. If you're spending all of your time focusing on one thing, you're bound to fail, regardless, right? But I think the core of a restaurant is happy guests and happy people there.
Yeah, 100%. And then, that ultimately, like I tell people that I agree with, what's the ultimate goal? What's your ultimate goal? It's like to give the guests the best experience possible.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. If you give them the best experience possible and they leave going, wow,
that's right.
That's it. So how do we reverse engineer from there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it all starts like you said, this next step back is a person that's delivering the experience and are they happy? Are they enjoying it? Because if they're working for a paycheck, they're not going to be delivering that experience. Like bottom line, if they're working just strictly for a paycheck, they're not going to be delivering that experience.
In anything.
In anything, yeah.
In anything.
100%.
I mean, I learned it, everything I learned in business, I learned in restaurants. That could be my next book. Because I don't operate a restaurant out of here. I operate 4 or 5 other businesses out of here. But I learned in restaurants how important it is that people are happy, and as importantly, are your customers happy? And that's all I care about. Everything else will take care of itself.
Everything else, gets taken care of back there. But if you don't have those 2 elements, you don't really you're not gonna have a successful
That's
business.
right. That's right.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I want to kind of go back because you piqued my interest, but you said that when you were working at that restaurant, that was the first time you saw like a team in unison, right? Where it was just there and existed. Why do you think so many restaurants struggle with that? Because I'm sure 90% of restaurants that you've experienced also don't do that or have a hard time with it.
Maybe more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great question. Somehow they haven't been convinced. Somehow they don't understand that life isn't about yourself. Somehow they never got the message that, and I don't mean it in a codependent way, that right now in my head, I'm just telling you my like immediate thoughts. Your being happy is more important to me than me showing off with how much I know. This is your show, right? This is your thing. You asked me to participate.
Yes.
I'm just breaking it down to what we're doing right here.
Yeah.
And if someone likes something that I said or finds it inspirational or can take a couple of can-dos or musts from this thing, fantastic. But right now, this is, I want you're the person who I want to be happy and say, oh yes, in your head, this is going well. This is an interesting conversation. I'm not sure a lot of people understand about the selfless aspects of life. Every time I step away from that and step into me and my ego, I have problems with my expectations, with outcomes. I'm setting myself up for disappointment all the time. Resentment, jealousy, anger, fear, all comes from that, right? Developing a selflessness mindset, right? Where outcomes are not based around what I get. I then have something to teach other people, to give away to other people. I can create atmospheres of grace in which things flourish. Now, a lot of people are going to hear that and say, well, that's a bunch of airy-fairy bullshit. And I would tell them, oh no, like you put that out on a fishbone, right? And I will show you an action step associated with every single one of those. Are you aware of this fishbone thing? We used to do that in the 80s when we were building restaurants. So over here is the tail. Okay. You're going to have to imagine, right? So it's just a pointed tail. And there's the spine. And there's the fish head, right? This is the day that you and I say oh my God, this town doesn't have a taco joint. Let tacos, beers, big patio, pitchers of margaritas, doesn't happen here. It's shooting fish in a barrel. Over here is opening day. Off of the spine, there's 100 bones up here. There's 100 bones down here, right? Somewhere along here, it's menus printed, staff hired, recipes tested, right? It's all the things you need to do to get to opening day, right? And when I came up in the restaurant business, everyone always talked about the fishbone, right? Meaning, what are all the tasks associated to get from point A to point Z? And I really think with a selflessness model, I'll give you a great example. What kind of music are we going to play? Well, you love, thrashy death metal, and I like old 40s country. We're opening our place in a college town. I'm not sure either one of those is a great choice. for music. So we're going to have to pick something that's not about us, it's about our guest. It's very simple. Now, what's fascinating to me is that you have this entire mindset, right? Which I think is crucial to opening a successful place. And yet you should be, I do believe in what Marco Pierre White, I mean, people have been talking about this for forever. He was probably just the first person to actually say it out loud where media listened to him and spread it everywhere. Cooking from the heart and cooking what you know is a very personal, ego-based exercise. I just happen to think when people bring those sort of things up to me, well, like, I'm cooking what I know and I'm cooking for me and hoping people like this. Like, yes, and it is not mutually exclusive with a selflessness mindset, right? That's the tricky part for people. But if you get too invested in just everything you like, that's great. You'll eat there and your buddies will eat there because they expect something for free, but you're not going to create a business that can, keep jobs, generate income, and be in existence for a very long time. And you can look at every single successful restaurant, and I can tell you right now, they play with a selflessness mindset.
100%. First of all, I have to give you one of these. I just got to give you one of these. And Dan can attest to this. So I talk at a lot of restaurants, and it's all about hospitality training, but I try and go further into, because hospitality training is a lot of restaurants do, where I think they fail is it's like, do this. That's how you achieve hospitality. Do that, right? Treat them like you're their friends. Treat them like they're your family. Do that. Instead of, I think hospitality, there's an inward training, and that's mindset.
Has to be.
And it's exactly what you talked about. And I'm like, all this is selfless. If you can have unconditional hospitality, selfless hospitality, to where it does not matter what their reaction is. It doesn't matter what they
do. And I don't mean this disrespectfully to people who, I have lots of dogs, so I'm a dog person, but that's the difference between somebody that trains a dog with love and from here versus someone that when they get the puppy, the first thing they do is they get the shock collar. I mean,
exactly.
Do this, do that. I mean, look, I've operated tons of restaurants over the course of my career and still operate one. And if you sit there and say to someone, I mean, you can say, hey, here's the line that we greet every customer with. It's not, yo, hungry?
Right.
Implied question mark. I mean, that's just like not the right mindset. But, we want people to say, welcome to Patty and Frank's. What can I make you today? Right. But we explain to people why, and we engage with them that way. It's fascinating running a quick serve restaurant, a much different model than anything that I've ever done, which I find really fascinating because you have people for whom they are coming there because it is a paycheck. It's a second job, in some cases a third job, right? The economy is not great today. And engaging with them on a selflessness mindset has been absolutely fascinating, because I think if you were opening I'm involved in several restaurant groups. We do open higher end restaurants, right? And I see the staff and I see training, and I am blown away at how aware a lot of people in our industry, the ones that still want to be in our industry, are of bringing that kind of mindset in. These are the people who, that's why I love food people, because they all still understand, yeah, this is a job. Yes, I'm getting paid. Yes, but I want to be part of something great. I want to be part of something where guests leave and go, wow, Myrtle, that was delicious. And we had a great time. Right. And I think there are people who want to work in restaurants in every single job that still want to do that. Still. And that's why I love this industry so much. I think there's something in the middle that's growing, that is pushing real hospitality out.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard the other day, it was just a snippet on Instagram, and I can't remember who said it or what the context was. But if you are opening a restaurant and you don't call it a restaurant, but you're constantly referring to it as a concept, ooh, you may be getting off on the wrong foot. You know, I am opening a restaurant. What kind of restaurant? Well, the concept is, you know, Colombian street food. Fantastic arepas, and and go on and on. Okay, I mean, because the word concept, that works. Sure, you want to use it in a sentence, great. But if I'm looking at you and I'm saying, oh, you're opening a restaurant, it's an amazing concept. Turkish bathhouse meets, Disneyland meets, like all of a sudden, like you're just forgetting about the guest, you're forgetting about everything. You're trying to create a Tao Group Restaurant 2.0. And I have an immense amount of respect. A lot of my friends have been involved in that group, and what they have done has been legendary. But I'm not sure that's 2025 moving forward. I think they can operate their restaurants. That's what they do. There are places for their concepts, right?
Mm-hmm.
But for quote unquote the average restaurant, you're not building a Tao concept, right? You're not building a Nobu concept. You're not building all these places that already have their brand. You're trying to create your own brand. I think you need to enter it with a different mindset.
I agree 100%. That kind of drives back to like ego, right? Because they're trying to picture this like concept that everyone's gonna think is so cool, and it's gonna be the talk of the town, and it's gonna do this and it's gonna do that, and I'm borrowing now from all these ideas that I like, and I agree 100% with that. And I think that's hospitality is getting pushed out because, in my opinion, there's a lot of reasons, but COVID had a big deal part in it, right? Where people,
Yes.
the way people work and want to do things, but also social media has a big part in it too, because it kind of teaches, there's not a lot of social media say, you deserve it. You deserve it. You deserve this. You deserve that. You deserve happiness. You deserve it. And which is true, but you also have to earn that stuff. You have to earn it, right? Like if I want to be happy, in some way, I have to earn that happiness. I can't just like lay on the couch and eat and just be selfish and rude to everybody and then be like, why am I not? How come I don't have more happiness?
COVID changed restaurants for at least another 5 years. And the reason that I say it that way, and the other problem is our economy is changing restaurants right now as we know it. So that may be extended. But so COVID goes down. All restaurants in America sort of stop. A handful of states in the South had a lot that stayed open, right? More so than in other places. 5 months later, there's a bit of a reprieve. Then we lock down. Then there's Omicron. We lock down again. I mean, there was a lot of start and stop. So let's just call COVID a 2-year experience. I know it went on longer, and I'm not here to parse, a global tragedy. You had essentially, just look at it as our restaurant industry shuts down. Everyone has to find another thing to do. A lot of people don't come back. They didn't like their experience in this industry, and for a lot of different reasons, from Me Too to how you're getting paid to, I mean, any one of a number of reasons, right? And then all of a sudden, the restaurant industry opens again. Let's just generically say 2 years later. And you have every single restaurant in America competing for employees. But half the people have gone and are not returning to the industry. So now you're training people from scratch. I remember times in the aughts and in the teens, and you would look at people and people would say, "Oh, there's no career waiters in America." Screw that. I met plenty of people who were like, "What have you?" "Oh, I started in college. I've been a server my whole life, and it allows me." Yes, he paints, or she's the single mom, or he's the dad that takes care of the kids during the day. His wife is a 9-to-5er, but he picks up 3 shifts a week in a restaurant, that's their extra money. I mean, there's lots of people who do, that's professional to me,
100%.
right?
Yeah.
Professional is in your approach, right? It's not in like, do you spend 70 hours a week doing it? Um, but we have still not recovered from that. And we are competing with a lot of places that can offer to pay more than restaurants traditionally pay. We have states taking away restaurants' ability to make money uh, in a way that we don't penalize other industries. And I'm talking about things like service charges and all the rest of that. The reason the restaurants were put in that position was because a lot of shitty years, then COVID, shutting down and trying to come out of that 8, 9, 10% to the bottom line reality that is, will end up shuttering a restaurant. You're one hot water heater blowing away, one good restaurant opening up down the street, depending how big your town is, from closure, right? So, and restaurants, I also think, did something historically over the course of my career that I think is the tree from which a lot of the poison fruit falls. And that is not charging for the plate what it really costs to put on the plate. And I will tell you, I'm older than you, surprise. Um, I was there in the 70s working in restaurants and the 80s when people are like, keep the chicken at $8. We're gonna we're making money at the bar, right? We're gonna build a bigger bar. We're gonna put in bar seats. We're gonna put in a bar menu. We're gonna put in a bar. Everything started the minute you start saying we are going to rob Peter to pay Paul. I'm all for the bar seats and bar menu and drink programs and fantastic cocktail program. I'm all for that. But you gotta charge what it costs to put food on the plate. Restaurant industry was fighting what Americans during economic downturns would compare to the prices that they were paying in supermarkets or putting food onto their own plates. And that's where that experience comes in, where you have to give them that experience because otherwise there's no way in God's green earth someone is returning to your restaurant, right? Why? There's no chicken on her. I mean, Judy Rogers, okay, her chicken is Jonathan Waxman, his chicken is that good. Other than those people, right? Roasted chicken, not going to a restaurant for that. Got to go to a restaurant for something that you not necessarily be able to duplicate at home. And I think that we have done ourselves a huge disservice in the restaurant industry as owners and chefs by continuing to keep prices stagnant as we watched our profit line go down. I just saw a fellow with a little lecture online. I caught a snippet of it that a friend of mine sent me talking about 22, 23% profits in restaurants. And then he quickly corrected himself and goes, well, now it's, 10, 11% if you're lucky. And it was just fascinating. He's my age. And it just came out of his mouth. And I'm just like, wow. That is that 1970s mindset that everything is coming up roses, and it's not. It is an extremely brutal thing. I think the other thing that we're fighting against right now is how popular food has gotten. You talk about social media, but food is so popular. Food Network generation is now in their 30s and 40s. I mean, just a million reasons. Food is the new rock. Chefs are rock stars. Food TV is big. Food is so huge, people like you and I looked at each other and said, okay, you were a bartender once in college. I waited tables a year after college. Let's open a restaurant, and not understand. We would never say, let's open a shoe store. Do you know anything about shoes? Oh yeah, I wear them. Me too. Let's open a shoe store. I mean, I guess that's possible, but the financial, requirements to teach ourselves the shoe industry so that we can be successful opening shoe stores. But yet everybody's like, yeah, let's open a restaurant. We're going to get our buddy Bob, make a lot of money on Wall Street. Well, he'll put in first check, right? Bob's like, yeah. And we're off to the races and we have no idea what the heck we're doing. And that just doesn't cut it today. It just doesn't cut it. Restaurants have to be businesses, right? Empires of selflessness, but they're businesses. And I think we have stopped honoring all of those tent poles, and we have stopped teaching history to people in restaurants. And the reason history is important is you have to teach people what happened before so that you know what to do moving forward. I remember when the first Japanese restaurants opened in New York City. I remember when the first sushi bar opened. It is, people think it's always existed, always been a part of the culture. Now look, people love the healthfulness of it, they love the flavors of it, the umami. There's something about Japanese food, well, many things, I could go on and on, that really, flip our switch, right? I mean, it's just delicious. But that doesn't mean you can go to Omaha and do the same thing. Don't send me letters, Omaha. I just use that as an example. I'm not saying that you can't open a great Japanese restaurant in a smaller city somewhere, but you have to be aware of how many Japanese restaurants are there, what the consumer wants. Do they want another one? Do they want it in the same way that they do in New York or Los Angeles? I don't know. I mean, and so history is so important. Even the 10-year history of your block, your neighborhood, right? It's this business is for romantic dreamers who want to deliver on excellence, and that's a very unique mindset.
It really is. It obviously cut from a different cloth. And to your point, I worked in Laguna Beach for a very long time, and we would see this trend where restaurants that were very successful in LA would try and copy and paste their restaurant in Laguna Beach. And, I'm sure they did some homework. I mean, Katsuya was out there.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd think like, obviously I'm sure the mindset was around like, well, it's one of the richest, areas and
Good demographics in Laguna Beach.
Yeah. And they would all fail. Tortilla Republic, Rock and Fish, Katsuya, they didn't last past 5 years, all of them. And they're all struggling the whole entire time. And that's because they failed to understand the demographic, what they actually wanted. Because although they're affluential, they're all regular people who wanted deals, who wanted to be known, who wanted experiences, who wanted the managers to come up and talk to them. Like Katsuya, I was talking to the GM and he's like, man, they will not let people wear flip-flops in the restaurant. And he's like, we're across the street from the beach. People are coming in to visit the beach. So they're coming in, regulars who are, millionaires, some of them billionaires wearing flip-flops. Sorry.
Yeah.
Nope. And obviously I get Katsuya's side, I get everyone's side, but to your point, right? You have to study those things, understand them, because even the most successful ones fail. But yeah, and I've seen that so many times too, where I even see regulars, right? Where they're like, they come in, they're like, I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
I eat at all the nice restaurants. I drink all the nice bars. I can do this.
Yeah.
I just need some funding, hire a couple good managers.
I had a guy that taught me a lot. His name was Steve Hansen. He had a big company in New York City, but I helped him open restaurants 1, 2, and 3 before I drank and drugged my way out of my work with him. But he taught me so much. He would sit across the street in his car, listen to music, whatever, with his famous yellow legal pad for 5 hours on a Sunday night, sitting there writing down traffic patterns, who did what, when people walked in, how many people walked by, were they families? I mean, he had more anecdotal data. But when we opened Isabella's on 79th Street in Columbus, he knew that we were open till 1 a.m. weekdays. There was no restaurant on the Upper West Side that was open till 1 a.m. weekdays. But he knew there were a lot of younger people. The neighborhood was transitioning. All the grandmas and grandpas were leaving. Younger people were coming in. And he knew in his gut that keeping the kitchen open late was important. And so what he did was he put French doors facing Columbus Avenue. He made sure that we didn't send, I was helping run the restaurant. He made sure I didn't send any servers home. He said, we're going to continue to pay them. They'll stand at the door of these at the French doors and look out. So people coming home from Midtown restaurants, from wherever, would come up Columbus Avenue and they would see, as they went home, our lights were on and people were standing at the at the doors. And over the course of time, it literally taught people, oh, where should we go to eat? It's midnight. Oh, Isabella's is open. And they went to Isabella's, and we gradually grew our late night business. It became really something to behold. And it was all because he sat in his car and just watched forever until he figured that out.
Which is impressive.
Yes.
Honestly, it's very impressive.
Yes.
Even top, very successful restaurateurs wouldn't go through those lengths, but it also shows you that being in the know, because I feel like restaurant owners are very quick to just say, business is slow, marketing, social media, hire a social media manager, which is not a horrible idea. But sometimes
Not
it's
in
just
2025.
right. Yeah, different time. But still, there's something to be said about studying, right? Understanding your demographic clientele. Why are people not coming in, and actually doing some legwork there. What do you think from all of your experience with the top 3 mistakes people make opening a restaurant?
Top 3 mistakes that people make in opening a restaurant. Lack of pursuit of excellence is probably number 1. I cannot tell you how often I see people settling for something middling. Now, ultimately, a critic, your audience, whatever, may have a different opinion than you do, but do not put something out into the public space that you're not willing to stand behind, that you don't believe is excellent. Why would you do that? You might get it wrong. You probably will get some of it wrong. I I was involved in a popcorn deal with the late Robbie Robertson, and it was some of the best 2 years of my life was talking to him every other week on a Zoom call. Sometimes it was just him and I. We're always talking about popcorn, but it wound up, I learned a lot of life lessons in these conversations. The conversation that I had with him about 2 weeks before he passed away, we had sent, we're developing 3 SKUs. We'd sent version 75.1 over to him. And I made the comment and I asked him if he liked it. Oh yeah, I loved it. Or he asked me how I liked it. And I said, almost nailed it, but I wanted to send it to you to get your take. And he got really pissed off at me. And rightfully so. He said, you know something? He said, everyone would say I've had a really successful career in music. I still score for Scorsese's movies and all the rest of that. He says, I'm still making music and producing music. He said, nothing goes to anyone until I think it's good enough to be at. Now, we then get notes back and say, switch this, change that. So the listener then has a different experience, right? Just like food. Chef, I make the food. When I put it up in the window, my experience with it is done, over. You are getting that experience. You're the customer. It comes to you. You have your experience. But if I don't think it's excellent, then why the hell am I putting it up in the window, right? If I don't think it's excellent, then why am I even opening the door with something that's not there? I've never opened a restaurant, and I've opened quite a lot over the course of my lifetime. I've never opened a restaurant where there weren't things that didn't switch after 3 days, that the dish that we thought would be the number 1 seller was the dud on the menu. I've created hamburgers and hot dogs for Patty and Frank's down in Atlanta, where at the Chattahoochee Food Works, and I can't believe it didn't sell. But it's the Atlanta consumer that I wasn't understanding as well as I could. And what's fascinating is that we started to listen to some of our employees, right? Which everyone should do. Yeah. Listen to your employees. And one of them said, people down here love coleslaw on hot dogs. I'm like, oh my God, I make a delicious coleslaw, chopped coleslaw. So it'll be easy to eat, right? Stringy, long coleslaw, not so great, hard to eat, hard to bite through, it pulls. Okay, I'm going to use my chopped coleslaw recipe on that thing. Now it sells pretty well, right? So you got to be willing to listen. But I think not, the pursuit of excellence is something that is, I think, probably the number one reason. Second reason, very close behind it, is not having a selflessness mindset, where something is about you instead of everything being about the guest and the guest experience. I mean, Everything is about the guest and the guest experience. I'm a Danny Meyer disciple. I just saw him the other day and was chatting with him about this. 100%. The two are not mutually exclusive. You can be running a for-profit business. You can be, putting your creativity and your ideas out there and still have a selflessness mindset, right? You can say the guest is not always right and still have a selflessness mindset. You can put your own employees first. Danny Meyer took the world onto that idea. I believe you put those people first. Then collectively, we have to have a selflessness mindset. That's what we're offering to people, right? The answer should be yes. Everyone, I think after setting the table, the best-selling business book about food is Will Guidara's Unreasonable Hospitality. He's been a friend of mine for about 15 years, and we're pretty close. And so I've been on the sidelines watching as his life has changed and where that book has come from. Not everyone is in a position to do it. However, you can do things that are similar, right? You always can. You talk yourself out of it. I'll give you a great example. In Will's book, and he also talks about this a lot. It was one night, it was 11 Madison Park, #1 restaurant in the world, wintertime, 2 parents, 2 kids. They were from a place that didn't have snow. And they had been all over and they'd seen all these things, but they hadn't seen snow, and it was dumping snow that night in the restaurant. And the kids were all like, "Oh, it's snow," and they wanted to play outside. And so Will sent someone to, Paragon Sports or whatever to get 2 little sleds, and, 2 blankets, and they put some hot chocolate in a thermos. And this is what you can do at 11 Madison Park. And they gave it to the mom and dad and said, we have a car outside that's going to take you to the 72nd Street hill in Central Park, and the kids can go sledding, right? Now, that is, a classic, right? There were people in that restaurant who never got to eat a New York City hot dog. He sent someone out to do it. Daniel Hume, the chef, his partner, was like mortified. How do I serve it? They got 4 bread and butter plates. He cut the hot dog in fourths, put them on the thing, carried it out to them, and let them bite a New York City hot dog, right? Some great moments. And I think as an operator, you have to understand that if you're offering soda, speed gun, and someone comes in and it's like, "Oh, my kid only drinks ginger ale," or whatever. If you can go across the street to the 7-Eleven or the gas station and buy a bottle of ginger ale and give it to the kid, you don't think the parent's going to bring their kid back there every single time for a hamburger or a hot dog? 1,000%. 1,000%.
And talk about it.
Of course they're going to talk about it. And I really, really, really think those are the 2 big. I think everything else, you asked for 3. I think everything else trails behind it. And well, I guess the third one I sort of already answered before, which is you're just not priced appropriately. Your pricing mechanism is designed for failure and not for success. And when you start switching things around, it's like rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. You're already sinking, and you're trying to raise this price 59 cents and that price 89 cents. Do your homework and figure out how you're going to be making money on a cold, in Minnesota, a snowy February night that may happen to be a Saturday, right? You got to figure that out.
100%. So passionate about it. And the third one you just brought up is so true because, there's also an aspect too of that I always tell servers this, like you have, the menu's never going to tell the full story of what goes into that dish. It's impossible, right? Unless you want to give them a Bible of stuff and they're like, "Oh my,"
That's right.
So that's nice and clean. And then you fill in the blanks, right? You talk to them about why that dish is so special and why they should be excited about it, because that also adds perceived value in their head. Wild caught salmon, lion caught, the sauce is made X, Y, and Z. They do this. Oh my gosh. What? Oh my gosh. I tell them it's like wine, so you talk about wine. It's like cherry notes, this notes. I can taste it all, right? You're like, because your mind's pulling for it. Same thing when you talk about the dish. Obviously the dish is delicious, but now that price, that check doesn't look so bad. Well, I mean, it's line caught salmon. That's not a bad price, but when they're just assuming that it might be frozen, that's a lot different. So I think that's part of like, yeah, you can have the price up here, but you have to protect that, in other ways, so they see the
That's right.
value.
That's right.
When you said pursuing excellence is so important, I feel like a lot of that gets lost in the small details. And I think that like I talk about this all the time, like a dirty or a sugar caddy, like drives me crazy. How is that acceptable?
It took me 20 years to stop lifting packets out of caddies if that's how it was delivered. And I'm glad to see that that's no longer the case. A lot of times when you order tea or coffee and it's, me and a couple people, a little saucer will come with a couple different packets and maybe some cubes and some lemon wedge. I mean, depending on what you're ordering, and a clean pitcher of milk. And we're not using caddies anymore, but it used to be every good restaurants, coffee shops, everything in between, caddies. And I just used to always lift them out because I was so used to doing it in my restaurants to see if they had been clean because it was on someone's side work every single night. All the packets come out, all of them get wiped down with vinegar, right? All of them, right? But I really do believe that if a restaurant doesn't care that when I'm walking to a table that there's like dust bunnies and stuff and no one's been under there for a long time, I'm like, do I want to eat the food? And that, by the way, I don't care whether you're a pizza parlor, a hot dog restaurant. I mean, or a 3-star Michelin restaurant. It's like clean, clean. I went to the airport the other day. I shot it out on video, and I was going to make a snarky post that I knew would get a bazillion views, and I didn't because I'm trying to practice a little bit more kindness in my own. It's not about me, right?
Right.
It's not about me getting views. That's someone's business, and those people have a job, and they might get fired. But I got online to order a bagel at a bagel place, and I looked in there. There were several people ordering. I knew a couple minutes behind, but I didn't. It was a new bagel concept, so I didn't know if they had tomato and red onion. I saw lots of little 6 pans and 9 pans through this glass window. Oh my God, glass window. And I looked through to see, and I mean, it was so gross. It's like they had refilled the avocado spread 20 times over the course of a week and never changed the pan that it was in. I mean, it was brown and crusted. I know enough about food to guesstimate how many days that had been in there. And I just sat there and I turned around and walked. I was with someone and they said, "Aren't we getting a bagel?" I said, "Absolutely not." And we walked across to Starbucks, and I, ordered that, shitty loaf cake thing that they got going that used to be good, that now comes in a plastic bag.
Sometimes they hand it to you that way.
By the way, I notice now with Starbucks, this is the goofiest thing of all. It's clearly their own sort of private label food service thing because they're big enough. But the sliced lemon loaf cake or, banana bread or whatever comes sealed in a plastic bag, like a shelf-stable deal. And then they open it, and the lady in front of me shook it into a paper Starbucks bag, folded it, and handed it to me like I was getting something special. And I was like, you just ruined the trick. I mean, good Lord. I think the other thing, and I'm not saying this because you're sitting here, but I mean, it is training. People say they can't afford training. I get it. I've had partners say to me, I can't afford training. I'm like, we can't afford not to. Can't afford not to. I think it's short-term pain for much longer-term gain.
Yeah, I agree 100%, and obviously, but and that's the whole reason why I'm obsessive about it. And I started this, and is because I was on the other side of the table for 10 years. So were you, right? Like you, longer, and it's like I saw how poor the training was and the consequences of it, and the consequences were not only are the restaurant not doing as well as they could. Sometimes they're doing well, but they still aren't doing as well.
And are you hiring right? Because, and I think this is maybe the biggest challenge for operators that are doing training is, are you bringing people in who are receptive to it? And that's a hiring issue,
Yeah.
I'm not as big on references as I am on, what would your last, supervisor say is the best thing you do? What would your last supervisor say is the thing you need to work on the most, you know, asking the right kind of questions, and taking it from there and having a real discussion with that person,
Yes.
is,
A
I
real
think,
discussion.
a real
Yes.
discussion is of vital importance. I mean, that's why you have to take the time when you're hiring. I've been involved in restaurants or been brought in to consult on something, and so it was, oh, I got, 100 applications here. And I said, how many have you talked to? They're like, none. I'm looking at the person with the most thing, then we're gonna bring them in, train them up, and I'm just like, wow, huge mistake.
Huge.
The last thing, and I don't know where it plays into your question, is what kind of culture do you represent? It's okay to have it be very simple, and it doesn't have to be complex. You don't have to be Google Food Labs. You don't have to have a point of view, Blue Barns at Stonehill or whatever. I mean, you can build a culture, right, that stands for something. You just have to know what it is yourself, even if it's just like good food, fair prices, happy people. All right, you can start from there. And then how are you going to do that? But if that's what you represent, then everything has to be thrown against that culture statement, right?
Yes.
Or mission statement. And I think a lot of people don't take the time to figure that out. Even if you're opening a scoop shop in a resort area and you're only going to be open 5 months a year, what do you represent?
Right, 100%, and through line it, because just like you talked about with hiring, is when you're hiring, onboarding, training,
Yep.
it has to connect. Because if you're hiring someone, you're like, hey, we do things like this. We're really
Yeah.
passionate about it. We do things like this. And you're going, okay, yeah, I agree. I want the job. Absolutely.
There's a ice cream shop that opened here a couple decades ago, but whether you ordered 1 scoop, 2 scoops, or 3, when you were done ordering, because they had like 40 flavors up there, what kind of Izzy do you want? What kind of Izzy do I want? Yeah, we give you an extra scoop, an Izzy. Gee, I'd love, I was torn. I just wanted to have 1 scoop. Oh, it's little. And gradually so you would go in there. I'd like the raspberry sherbet cone, lemon sherbet Izzy, and you would get this raspberry scoop cone and this little, it was a baby scoop. So you can kind of make your own combos and all the rest of this kind of thing. Not only did it build loyalty, he pushed a lot of people on other visits to order 2 scoops instead of 1. He no longer was making, 5 flavors and all the rest were kind of sitting in the freezer. He was churning through more ice cream because people were like, well, I had no idea what Tutti Frutti was, let's say, but I was intrigued. So it was free. So I got a Tutti Frutti Izzy. I love it. Now I'm going back and I'm ordering that.
I
Right.
can only get it there.
What a fabulous thing to do. Like, think about what your Izzy is. There should be something. I mean, there are famous stories in our industry where not all suited financially to do it. I think, what was it? Panera that did the Limitless cup of coffee.
Oh, I didn't know that.
They for a long time, they may even still be doing it right now, but you paid like $12 a month and you got into the coffee club. And it was limitless refills on your cup of coffee. Limitless. Now, you can't go in and get 5 cups of coffee and be buying it for the office, but you want come by. Our coffee urn is your coffee urn for $11 a month. I think they came up with the price because they figured that what it would cost if someone came in for a refill like every day or something like that. But the point was, kind of like everyone jokes about some of these super big box stores like Target, you go in there to buy a laundry hamper or a plastic basket, and you can't leave without spending $100. People would go there, oh yeah, I'll take a sandwich. Oh, I'll get a salad. Oh, I'm going to take an extra one of these. Oh, I'll grab that. I mean, it was just simple. Once you're there and you have them, and they had a fun way of rewarding customers with something inexpensive to give, right?
Right.
And I just think you got to figure out, what's your Izzy? What's your thing? What's going to set you apart? I think those things are really, really, really important. I know this is a really strange kind of thing, but it's the, what is it? Five Guys has peanuts. They're the one. right?
Yep.
Five Guys has
Yeah.
peanuts on the way in. Joke all you want about it. I mean, how many stores do they have now?
Yeah.
And I got news for you. They're not necessarily the best hamburger or the best French fries or the best onion, but they have their system that sets them apart from some of their competition, but no one else is giving you peanuts. It's the only one I've seen.
For sure.
I know Texas Roadhouse does the same
But like a QSR
thing, but yeah, I mean, it's just it's amazing to me. In Sichuan province, when I go there, you get these little spicy peanuts are down on every single table. In Mexico, in certain regions, chapulines on every single table. It's gone away a little bit because people are like, I don't want my guests to fill up. But when I was younger, you would go into whether it was a fancy restaurant or a humble cantina, if it served Mexican food, chips and salsa went on the table, right? Now, I get it. A lot of restaurants were saying, people aren't ordering as much. They're filling up on the free chips and salsa. Well, you know something? Adjust your server timings so that someone's getting there to take the order fast enough. Don't let them eat a whole basket of chips, right? Well, we're losing our shirt on the salsa. Smaller bowl. Let them ask for seconds after they've ordered, right? I mean, there's all kinds of ways I have to counter that argument. And quite frankly, if you're eating chips and salsa, you're probably going to want that drink faster. So get that drink order over there faster. Maybe if you had an extra server on the floor, you could take advantage of those things. So you have to look at all those metrics that allow you to take advantage of the IZZY, right? And I am convinced the more things that you can build in that make people feel like they're taken care of, like oh, I'm hungry and thirsty right away, and you get there right away, dropping something that doesn't cost anything, right? And taking a drink order right away and getting menus down and all the rest of that kind of stuff. I don't care if you're Le Bernardin or whether you're, Bernie's Diner. It doesn't matter.
100%. Yeah. I love this. I know you're busy. I have one more question for you though. What's your favorite Grateful Dead tour?
Oh my gosh. There is people I think fail to understand that the great thing about the Dead, a little bit unlike, let's just say, the Stones. The difference is that the Stones didn't have generational changes in the band, different sounds. I mean, Jerry played a different guitar and produced a different sound that he loved playing in, the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, right? So a lot of people are in love with the sound that the Grateful Dead generated in the 80s. I'm a late 70s guy because that's kind of where I came in. And to me, 77 was a magical year. First year that I saw them. So I tend to be a later 70s guy. However, tons of great 80s shows that I listen to. They're on heavy repeat on my in my car. Give me a good 77 show and I'm happy as a clam.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. This has been like amazing. I've enjoyed this conversation thoroughly. I could spend 10 hours here, to be honest with you.
Me too.
If we had the time. I'm joking.
I appreciate it, but we can do it again.
Oh, I would absolutely love to. Definitely.
You're in.
That's a legal binding contract, by the way, because verbal.
No, I said it.
Verbal.
I said it.
Thank you, my man. Appreciate you.
You're very, very welcome.